When you buy a coffee today, the transaction is virtually invisible. You tap your phone, wait a second for the green checkmark, and walk out. You don't think about the invisible network of institutional trust working behind the scenes to approve that exchange instantly. This photograph shows a collection of ancient silver ingots. If you step back to 500 BCE, buying something was an exhausting ordeal. Before standard money existed, long-distance commerce relied on irregular chunks of raw precious metal. Imagine a merchant attempting to buy a bolt of silk from a foreign trader. They agree on a price, and the buyer pulls out a raw lump of silver. Immediately, trade stops. The seller has a problem. How do they know that metal is actually silver? Every single exchange required a grueling verification process. The merchant would examine the color, or even bite it, testing for soft tooth marks. Sometimes they hired professional metalworkers to melt the lump down, just to prove it wasn't cheap lead coated in precious metal. Look at this antique balance scale. Even if the metal was pure, merchants couldn't simply count pieces of silver. They had to painstakingly weigh the irregular metal against their own custom, unverified reference stones. This chart compares the transaction cost of these two eras. What takes 2 seconds today could consume 10 to 15 hours of arguing, acid testing, and weighing in the ancient world. Ancient commerce rarely failed because there was a lack of valuable goods to trade. The bottleneck was the constant, exhausting friction required to prove that a piece of metal was real. Around 600 BCE, the Lydian kingdom in what is now modern Turkey found a solution. They refined natural metal, formed it into uniform discs, and struck each piece with an official royal stamp. This diagram breaks down the 3 guarantees embedded inside that royal stamp. The first layer is authenticity. The royal symbol proved the object was produced by the state mint, meaning the merchant didn't have to worry about fake metal. The middle layer represents purity. The stamp certified the exact ratio of precious metal inside the disc. This completely removed the need for merchants to perform complex acid or fire tests. The final layer represents standardized weight. The stamp guaranteed a precise mass. Merchants could finally throw away their reference stones and balance scales. They could just count. Think back to our silk merchant. Under this new system, there is no biting, melting, or weighing. The buyer simply hands over a stack of officially stamped discs, and the transaction is complete. A 10-hour ordeal drops to 10 seconds. This works entirely because the buyer and seller no longer need to trust each other. They outsource the trust to the sovereign ruler who stamped the coin. Other regions immediately saw the value in this. This image shows an ancient Greek coin bearing a deep, easily recognizable stamp. City-states enforce these standards strictly, allowing their currency to maintain a stable purchasing power across generations. This ceramic Tang Dynasty camel represents the result of that efficiency. Stripping away friction allowed trade networks to expand across thousands of miles. This speed and consistency provided the logistical foundation for states to grow. When trade moves faster, governments can reliably collect taxes across vast distances and pay professional armies with a single currency everyone accepts. The coin was the technology that made the scale of an empire possible. While coins created newfound efficiency, they also introduced a quiet, dangerous fragility into the financial system. Older commodity money, like salt or cowrie shells, had independent value. A bag of salt was useful for preserving food regardless of who was running the local government. A coin is different. Its value relies entirely on the honesty of the ruling authority. If a government collapses, or if the sovereign lies about the metal inside, the coin is just a useless, unknown disc. This reliance created a severe temptation for rulers. Look at this marble bust of a Roman emperor. Emperors had to fund constant military campaigns and build grand monuments. And because they controlled the mint, they held the power to cheat their own system. This cheating process is known as debasement. An emperor would quietly order the mint to melt down the pure silver coins and mix in cheap copper, while striking them with the exact same trusted stamp. This cross-section shows the mechanics of the debasement trap. By secretly shrinking the silver content and replacing it with cheap metal, the ruler could instantly double their spending power without mining a single new ounce of silver. But merchants eventually notice. They weigh the coins in bulk and realize the stamp is a lie. As trust drops, the merchants adjust. They demand a larger and larger pile of coins to match the value of one pure coin. This is the mechanism of early inflation. The physical goods cost exactly the same amount of effort to produce, but merchants require more and more metal because the guarantee on the coin is no longer believed. The Roman denarius, shown here from both sides, provides a clear historical record of this trap. As emperors continuously watered down the silver content to pay their bills, the denarius lost 95% of its purchasing power over 2 centuries. When an authority abuses its mint long enough, the trust completely evaporates. The public stops accepting the coins, the financial system breaks down, and complex societies violently regress back to bartering with raw goods. The history of the coin reveals a fundamental truth. Money only functions as long as the promise on the stamp remains true. When the authority behind that stamp breaks its word, the economic engine of an entire civilization can simply grind to a halt.